Perfect. Okay. And then I also see. Okay, perfect. Hopefully. Okay.
Participate and engage in the summer session directly from the Zoom client. Users can click on the unmute button to speak and on the start video to turn on their camera. You can also see the rest of the participants by clicking on participants. And if you want to start a chat, then click chat. This will open up a chat box where you can start messaging the participants. Primero veremos cómo usar la plataforma Zoom. Abajo es un ejemplo visual de cómo participar e involucrarse en la sesión de la cumbre directamente desde el cliente de Zoom. Los usuarios pueden hacer clic en el botón de silenciar para hablar y en el video de inicio para prender su cámara. Pueden ver el resto de los participantes haciendo clic en los participantes y si desean iniciar un chat, haga clic en chat. Eso abrirá un cuadro de chat donde puede comenzar a enviar mensajes a los participantes. Next, we will highlight on how to turn on closed captioning. We have enabled captioning services for each session. When entering a session, you will see a notification that captioning services are available. Attendees can click the CC icon and choose to show subtitles, view full transcript, or modify subtitle settings. A continuación, veremos cómo activar los subtítulos. Hemos habilitado los servicios de subtítulos para cada sesión. Al ingresar a una sesión, verá una notificación de lo que los servicios de subtítulos están disponibles. Los asistentes pueden hacer clic en el icono CC y elegir mostrar subtítulos, ver la transcripción completa o modificar la configuración de subtítulos. We have also enabled interpretation services for each session. When entering a session, you will see a notification that interpretation services are available. Attendees can click on the globe icon and choose to enable interpretation in available languages, or if preferred, simply turn the feature off. To hear the interpreted language only, click View Original Audio. Los asistentes también pueden usar los servicios de interpretación. Hemos habilitado servicios de interpretación para cada sesión. Al ingresar a una sesión, verá una notificación de que los servicios de interpretación están disponibles. Los asistentes pueden hacer clic en el icono del globo y optar para escuchar los idiomas disponibles, o si lo prefieren, simplemente desactiva la función. Para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado, haga clic en silenciar audio original. Attendees will also be able to adjust and utilize accessibility features on the WebEx platform. Click on the bottom left icon with your picture or name, and a menu should pop up. If you would like to adjust any accessibility features, click on Accessibility Adjustments. Los asistentes también podrán utilizar las funciones de accesibilidad en su plataforma WebEx. Haga clic en el icono inferior izquierdo con su imagen o nombre y aparecerá un menú. Si desea ajustar algunas funciones de accesibilidad, haga clic en Ajustes de accesibilidad. Once accessed, users will be able to adjust their settings in their profile. Slide the button from off to on for any preferred setting. Some key features you are able to turn on are seizure safe profile, vision impaired profile, ADHD friendly profile, cognitive disability profile, keyboard navigation motor, and blind users screen reader profile. Una vez accedido, los usuarios podrán ajustar su configuración en su perfil. Elige el botón de apagado a encendido para cualquier configuración preferida. Algunas funciones clave que puede activar son perfil seguro contra convulsiones, perfil para personas con problemas de visión, perfil compatible con TDAH, perfil de discapacidad cognitiva, navegación con teclado motor y perfil de usuarios ciegos, lector de pantalla. Users can also adjust their content settings on their profile. Some settings attendees can adjust are content scaling, readable font, highlight titles, highlight inks, magnifier and alignment, adjust font sizing, line height, and spacing. Los usuarios también pueden ajustar su configuración del contenido en su perfil. Algunas configuraciones que los asistentes pueden ajustar son escalado de contenido, fuente legible, títulos y enlaces destacados, ampliación y alineación del texto, ajuste del tamaño de fuente, altura de línea y espaciado. Users can also adjust colors on their profile. You can select between contrast, saturation, and adjust the colors on text, title, and background. El usuario también puede ajustar los colores de su perfil. Puede seleccionar entre contraste, saturación y ajustar los colores del texto, el título y el fondo. One final thing is that users are able to adjust the orientation of their profile. You can mute sounds, hide images, use red mode, utilize the reading guide, stop animations, highlight, hover, and focus, use a reading mask, and choose between a black or white cursor. Una última cosa es que los usuarios pueden ajustar la orientación de su perfil. Puede silenciar sonidos, ocultar imágenes, usar el modo de lectura, utilizar una guía de lectura, detener animaciones, resaltar y enfocar, usar una máscara de lectura y elegir entre un cursor blanco o negro.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all for watching that video. Now I am actually going to get us started. I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa.
Great, thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Vanessa Reese, and I'm the Managing Director of Fresh Taste. Fresh Taste administers the Chicago Region Food System Fund, which organized this evening's panel conversation with one of the fund's steering committee members and representatives from two amazing community-led and collaborative organizations. The fund was created in the early months of the pandemic and, much like our panelist organizations this evening, grew out of relationships of trust to develop work that responded to immediate needs. After 5 years of ongoing disruption created by the pandemic, plus an influx of displaced people to our region, we're now also living within the chaos released by the new federal administration. Together, these factors have revealed opportunities for supporting those most impacted by the inequities in our existing food system, and an understanding that the food system must be reimagined to prioritize equity and local communities. Over the next hour, we want to delve into several topics, including thinking about new and equitable models in food work, learning from each other, and understanding the needs of the moment. Our conversation will be led by Janelle St. John, Executive Director of Growing Home, who serves on the steering committee of the Chicago Region Food System Fund. Janelle is joined by Heather Nichols, who is a founding member of the Chicagoland Food Sovereignty Coalition, and Frankie DiCiaccio, who has many food system roles, but this evening will be speaking about the work of Common Table DeKalb. Brandon Hayes from Bold Bison, which communicates for the fund, is also here to help facilitate our conversation as needed. And finally, I'll introduce Dan Kenny, even though he wasn't expecting this. He's another member of the steering committee who has joined us on the call this evening. To get us started, I'll turn everything over to Janelle.
Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you all for having me. Before I get with my spiel to share about the fund and about Growing Home, I want to again welcome everyone. Welcome Heather and Frankie. But I want to hear from you. We would love for you to share about how are you feeling right now with the new political landscape, the chaotic moments we're in. How has your work been changing? What trusted relationships are you leaning into at this time? Please feel free to put it in the chat or to unmute yourself. I think in these times, it's so important that we level set before we start a conversation. And again, welcome. Put your comments in the chat. Brandon is checking it out. But again, feel free to unmute yourself.
For this portion of the session, Alex, do you mind stopping sharing the slides so we can see folks' faces? And we'll definitely let you know when we can share the slides again. Thank you. So right off the bat in the chat, we have nervous about local food purchasing with the USDA cuts. And a follow-up, unnerved about the cuts of federal funds and jobs. And somebody sharing that they're ready for a roller coaster with this administration. And we definitely want to open space for folks to unmute yourselves if you feel comfortable. We're curious about, you know, in addition to what you're fearful about, sort of what steps you're taking to change. What are some of those sort of trusted relationships you're leaning into? We know this is a little bit unconventional to sort of start the session by turning the conversation in on everybody else, but you know, we want to hear from the group. Dan says, always waiting for the next shoe to follow. Nicole says, not worry because of a seed cost minimum. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
I'm still optimistic. You know, they're going back and forth, but you know, like we have seed banks and stuff like that in the places. There's probably people that are already self-sufficient and somewhat and have funding. Yeah, the same thing came about us because we're at the American Indian Center of Chicago. And one of our grants that I use for my food as medicine is coming from ANA, which is the Department of Interior. So we still have funding. At least we have money for 2 months or up to October so far. So, and then, you know, we're just got to keep scrambling and looking for more grants out there, which there are. I think Harold Washington Library has a big, I forgot what floor it's on, but I haven't been there for years. But there's a floor that has a lot of companies and corporate places where you can get grants to. And I have the book Grants for Dummies, so I look at that when I need to. But I have a lot of people that are supporting me here too, doing that. And everybody's wearing different hats and multiple hats. And so I think we just got to dig down, you know, and just keep moving forward of what we're doing. I know it's probably a little painful to think about what the future holds, but I think we're moving in the right direction. There's other farms in Illinois that are trying to do the same thing that are bigger. So just find more resources, and if I can help too, I'll try. And you know, I do a senior lunch, so any seniors that need food can come to the Indian Center on Wednesdays for a hot meal at 12 o'clock. And we do a food box at the end of the month every Thursday, so every last Thursday of the month. So, you know, I don't want to get it too big for our britches right now, but I do have funding to buy organic, you know, wholesome foods that are from our state, from our farmers. That's what I'm trying to give out here. And I'll just keep continuing to do that as long as I have the funding or we have people to write grants. So, yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone who comments in the chat. This is amazing. And Paul mentioned something. He already started it. Let's share your resources in the chat. Like if you know something, say something, put it in the chat. We're all sort of in the same business, so we probably can circle around the same funders. So this is a great opportunity to share some of that. Michelle?
Sorry.
I think, Michelle, you unmuted yourself. You wanted to share something?
If not, Dale's hand is up too.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Dale Kane with Advocates for Community Wellness. I'm new in this space. It is our goal with our organization to collaborate with organization that is in this space, sponsoring this space, and learning in this space. We have a achieving food security for achieving household security for vulnerable population. And I put in the chat, because we are faith-based, is that I trust in God. I trust in His will. With our organization, we have grown. I know that with every circular problem, there's a spiritual solution. And we are currently working with collaboration. That's what attracted me to this space. You know, we're small, grassroots. We operate on a limited amount of resources and funding. And but getting other small base community organizations to come together to share and to collaborate on common things that we do, we know that we will survive and grow from it. And I'm
Perfect.
complete.
Thank you. Thank you. So keep putting your comments in the chat. We'll start. I think, Brandon, we can start with the slide. But again, thank you, everyone. Keep sharing, and community is the key, right? Sharing is caring. But yeah, we're stronger together. So now I would like to share with you an ally that you have, an ally that was born out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is the Chicago Region Food System Fund. Well, while the slide comes up, I'll start chatting about the fund. Some of you in this room probably have sent an application to us or have gotten funded. Some of us on this call have. So the Chicago Region Food System Fund was created, as I mentioned, in response to COVID-19. We fund organizational food entities within 200 miles of Chicago. The fund uses a reform and investment approach to support a more equitable, adaptive, and resilient Chicago region food system. This approach embraces experimentation, promotes BIPOC leadership and ownership, and encourages long-term collaboration. Beautiful. In addition to the food-focused organizations serving farmers, growers, and advocates, the fund supports a range of organizations, including but not limited to community associations like block clubs, house of worship, who consider food part of their mission, and local food businesses that bring food from farm to table. We're a very unique funding group. We're a participatory steering committee. This group is composed of myself and 5 other community representatives and 3 funder representatives. We are responsible for developing the overall strategy for the fund, designing the grant making, and also distributing these most valuable resources to our community. Next. So here goes the crew for now. We have term limits, so you'll see different faces hopefully next year. But this is the team. You've probably seen many of us in different circles: Lenore, Haven, Alexandra, Dion, Jose, of course myself, Dan, who's on the call, and Gina. Beautiful. Now, to date, the fund has granted, time flies, but what have we done in that short time? We've granted over $21 million to over 203 nonprofit organizations. The first round focused on evolving the food system. We were very intentional in how we designed these rounds. We wanted to build and tackle various aspects of the food system. So the first round, Evolve the Food System, you can go to the next slide, is that we recognize that the only way to build an equitable, resilient, and thriving food system of the scale needed to serve Chicago and its broad metropolitan region is to dismantle the current unsustainable and exploitative system and replace it. This round focused on supporting organizations and projects that guide the system away from extractive commercial agriculture and food systems, which reward a small group of corporations and shareholders, and towards one that encourage cooperative models and sustainability for both the land and livelihoods. The second round, which was grow local and regional food system resources, the fund has a wealth of organizations growing, processing, and distributing food at various scales. These organizations need increased investment. We all on this call, one thing we know, we always need more. There's a lot of need, but we're doing it with small budgets, with some, as we say, spit and tape. So for us, being able to strengthen our local and sustainable food system can also offer climate solutions with regional, national, and global implications. We see you. The goals for the round two included identifying and addressing bottlenecks and barriers in building an equitable local and regional production and distribution capacity, increasing the participation by those who have been marginalized in the system, and developing technology and other innovations to support the new value chain and social integrations. Again, it's all about innovation. And one thing COVID has shown us is how innovative our community can be. Round three, again, is preparing the food system for emergencies. We all feel like we're in an emergency somewhat right now, but good news is we had practice. So much creativity came out of COVID. And so we wanted to really focus on rewarding those organizations who really responded, got creative. The third round of funding applied the lessons of 4 years of emergency response to planning for future systemic shocks. The goals for round three included shifting away from charity towards solidarity, away from fat, sugar, salt-laden processed foods towards more nutritious foods, including culturally relevant, local produce, build assets and opportunities, including employment and education in communities served, expanding governance and leadership by BIPOC people, and helping the emergency food system to respond equitably to climate change impact. Now, this was a great round. We look forward to see many of those organizations funded on this round stepping up in these times. And so we're so happy to be part of that. Now, we ain't going anywhere. The fund is committed at least to continue to give funding through 2026 with $8.7 million in additional funding. Now, we ain't had no intention of going away after 2026, but we're going to be really focusing on relying on other funders to come to the table to ensure that this fund can continue to meet the needs of our community. Please move to the next slide. So we're here. We plan on keep giving money. We have $8.7 million. Please check out our website so you could get updates on the new funding cycles. And I won't say much because then I might talk too fast. But know that we're here and this money's here. And I see Brandon put the link in the chat. We update it on a regular basis. And so please keep an eye out, like really keep an eye out for opportunities that are around the corner. You guys will have time to ask questions at the end. So I know you guys have a lot of questions. Now I want to shift hats a little bit. I want to talk about what I do every day outside of the fund. Next slide. I have the pleasure of being the executive director of Growing Home. We are the only USDA certified organic farm in Chicago. We're a high production farm, and we have the pleasure of operating in Inglewood. And we've been in Inglewood for several years. As people talk about sourcing local, growing organic food, the good news is we've been doing it for many years right here in Inglewood. Next slide. So Growing Home's mission, the next one, is to operate, promote, and demonstrate the use of organic urban agriculture as a vehicle for job training and employment, food access, and community development. We literally just believe in one simple principle. We believe that everyone deserves a good job and good food. And our farms make that happen. Can you believe we have to say that? Everyone deserves a good job and good food. Please go to the next slide. I mean, it's sad that we have to say this, right? And I know everyone on this call support this. The thing is, many of us have different ways of getting there. Why is this important? Why is what growing home does so important? You guys have heard of food deserts. Please go to the next slide. Food insecurity. You've heard all these things. One of the terms you might not be as familiar with is food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agriculture system. What a novelty idea. We live in a country that's so cosmopolitan. And then, wow, our food should reflect the population and our population. Simple as that. And also thinking about really the earth, the climate. It's not enough to just consume today, but to also think about the future. Now, how do we do this? I'm going to do this very quickly. Next slide. So we're a high production farm. We're USDA certified. We're also GAP certified for those of you in the food world, good agriculture practice. This means we could sell to grocery stores. We have 3 farm sites. We grow on about 1.7 acres, actually a little bit bigger than the 1 acre. We focus on producing culturally appropriate food. We do over 115 varieties of produce every year. And I hate using pounds because it's all relative. We do an average of 35,000 pounds of food. Next slide. Food access. So you could see us at Green City Market. We also host our own market in Inglewood. We're in Hyde Park Market. We accept Link. We do double match coupons. We have an Inglewood CSA where residents receive, 50 homes receive food at no cost to them delivered to their home. We partner with 3 food pantries where we deliver food to those food pantries. And a little quiz. The partnership with the Chicago Food Depository started with Growing Home reaching out to Food Depository prior to COVID, saying, hey, you should think about sourcing locally. And now so much has come out of that idea. I know a lot of that is threatening right now, but we've done it before. We'll continue to do good work. Again, we focus on some grocery stores and restaurants, but our focus is ensuring that organic food is something that many people are priced out of. And we're in a unique space where we can make this affordable to our community. So our goal is how can we get it to our community in a respectful and pride way. Next, we focus on education because it's not enough to grow the food. We got to explain what organic versus non-organic mean, because let me tell you, even I was jaded. We use our learning garden to interact with our youth. We use volunteers. We definitely, LaQuandra, who's on this call, we use cooking demos because we got to trick people to try the food. Again, it's not enough to grow it. It's not enough for people to buy it, but how can they prepare it in the most healthy way that tastes good? So education is part of it. The other big way is we use our farm for workforce development. And you could do the next slide. Every year we have a paid transitional job program where we focus on teaching transferable skills. In addition, they get to work along with the farm and they spend their time in the classroom with 2 evidence-based curriculum, Roots for Success and TIP, Transforming Impossible to Possible. Believe it or not, we got another program, which is our certified IT program, where we teach A+ and all these fancy degrees. And why are we doing that? Because we're a farm and there's a lot of job training programs out there, but sometimes we're just right for that one person. Come in with your boots, nobody cares what you look like, you're just here to work. So we teach, it's a holistic program. We definitely focus on case management. So we're just a unique tool. And to end, I'll share the last slide, which is one of our alums. We don't train people to be farmers, but it's a great byproduct when somebody goes home and starts growing their own food. And this is from one of our alum who started his own backyard garden. So again, we are foodies, and our goal is to ensure that we make people know how to grow their own food. Even if they never use it, they never forget how to do it. What was the name of so Roots for Success? I'm assuming I'm seeing the rest of this. And the other one is TIP, Transforming Impossible to Possible. The next slide, please. What makes us unique? Again, high production, organic. We are located in Inglewood. We pretty much grow. We do season extension. Our goal is to do a capital campaign where we could truly grow year round. Again, we believe in meeting people where they are. And the last slide is my contact. If you want to ever learn more about Growing Home and the Chicago Region Food System Fund, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. And now I would read it over to my colleague, Heather.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Janelle. That was amazing. My name is Heather. I use she, her pronouns, and I am with the Chicagoland Food Sovereignty Coalition. Just a little bit of background about who we are. We are a group of 30 or so, 20 very active mutual aid groups in the city and the surrounding areas. Most of our groups, most of our member organizations formed at the beginning of COVID in a emergency response to our community's immediate needs. And back at the end of 2020, we formed this coalition to make the work that we had been doing more sustainable. And here we are now, 5 years later, and we're still going strong. Next slide. My introduction is going to be much shorter than Janelle's. Our organization is based mostly in food rescue. We are 100% volunteer run, and we have one of the core tenets of mutual aid is that we are about our smaller or insular more community, but by having the coalition, we make the work that we do across the city more sustainable, not just for ourselves in the community, but for the volunteers as well. And this has kept a lot of our smaller groups active and thriving through the most difficult years of the pandemic. And now, as we face these new challenges, it's something that we are able to continue to do. We operate outside of structures like government and things like that. So we are a lot more adaptable, and we, like I said, we mostly source our food from rescue, and we rescue food at every opportunity. So we have partnerships with farmers and pantries and food distributors and restaurants and grocery stores. So we are really preventing food from being wasted at every part in the chain. And though the food we supply our neighbors is majority supplemental, it really has made an impact in individual people's lives. Next slide. This is a photo of us from a couple years ago at a meetup at one of our member person's farm down in Bridgeport. And I have been involved in this coalition since the beginning, and I can't imagine my life outside of this group of people. And it's kind of revolutionary what the coalition has been able to accomplish. And I'm really here to learn, and I've just from what we've been discussing in this call so far, I'm learning so much about what the struggles that everyone else is facing, and I'm really here to learn more about what everyone's going through. And yeah, sorry. Through our localized efforts, we're able to continue moving forward. We're funded through this year, so we're not really concerned about that. And actually, since the election, we've seen such a market increase in engagement. I think that people are really wanting to get more involved, and that's been great. But we are facing the same issues as a lot of you, which is our food sources have definitely dwindled in the past couple months, and I'm sure it's going to get much worse. Next slide. And so I just have here a link to learn more, our website. There's a volunteer form if you're interested, a donate link, and a QR code if that's easier for you. And that's all that I have. Thank you. Frankie?
Sure, thanks, Heather. It's so nice to hear about what you're up to and what kind of work you've been doing. Hi, everybody. My name's Frankie DiCiaccio. I use the pronouns they and he interchangeably, and I'm here today to talk about Common Table DeKalb, which is a relatively new project. A little about myself. I come to this work from kind of multiple different avenues. I'm primarily a theater artist. I have experience directing, choreographing, putting on shows. I teach. I'm currently in my office at Northern Illinois University, where I'm an instructor. And here in DeKalb, Illinois, I've done some work with Barb Food Mart, which is a food pantry that serves families with kids in our public school district, as well as a project called the Queer Oriented Rural Resource Network, and DeKalb Migrant Aid. So I'm a person who's like bouncing around through many projects, and Common Table DeKalb was sort of like a really joyful coming together of those different projects and my own sort of experiences and interests. So what is Common Table DeKalb? We're a series of community meals and conversation throughout our county, DeKalb County. We bring people together through a series of events that involve food and dialogue, because we think that sharing a meal and a story can help foster mutual understanding between individuals and also strengthen community bonds. Our collaborative includes individuals, nonprofit organizations, faith communities, and other groups across the county. And thanks to a Chicago Region Food System Fund Community Unity Through Food Initiative grant, we're able to offer all Common Table events for free. And I'm sure folks who are on this call can understand what a difference that can make. By removing a barrier to an event like this, you really can step up how inclusive your work toward community building can be. And we also, at every Common Table DeKalb event, there's take-home items. So folks who might say, you know, oh, I would love to have something to bring home with me after it. You know, it is just like a feel-good event where you're going to come, enjoy some community, and enjoy some good food. Next slide, please. So I figure that a lot of folks on this call might be from Chicago or the surrounding area, and you might not know where or what or who DeKalb is. So this slide is just to give you a little context. We are a county located about 70 miles west of Chicago. There we are on this map here. DeKalb County has a population of a little over 100,000, and the city of DeKalb has a population of about 40,000 people. If you take the Metra Union Pacific West line to Elburn, you get off the train and then you get in a car and you drive another 25 minutes and then you get to the beautiful city of DeKalb. But we are a bit far out from Chicago. In our city is Northern Illinois University, where I'm currently sitting talking to you from. And in our county, we have a community college, Kishwaukee Community College. There's a lot going on here. I want to zoom in really briefly on our school district. So DeKalb Public Schools has about 6,500 students. And if you look at DeKalb measured against or compared to our state average, we have a higher percentage of Black and Hispanic students than our statewide average. Just a note, I put Black and Hispanic in quotes there because I actually don't know how this data was comprised and whether it was like an opt-in where people got to choose their own language around their identity or not. But we do know that contrary to what a lot of people might think, being a rural county and a rural city and school district, we actually are pretty diverse. And along with our sort of diverse population, we have a pretty high experience of need here. The percentage of students who are eligible, and I couldn't find this broken out, but students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, who live in some kind of substitute or foster care, or whose families receive public aid. In DeKalb City, D428, the DeKalb Public School District, 67.5% of our students fall into one of those categories, and our state average is 49.8. So we know that there's folks here who experience food insecurity, among other forms of need. And we also know that we have a pretty diverse population who we're working to serve. There aren't monoliths. I want to say that, I'm starting here with the statistics because I think that they tell part of the story, but we certainly know that people are a lot more complex and vibrant than the numbers. So if we move into the next slide, I can talk a bit more about that. Thank you. When we were invited to write a grant, when we were first looking into this, step one was to create a collaborative, was to lean into that diversity and the amount of people in and around this place who are doing good work. So toward the left of the screen here, you'll see our faith community partners, and then it kind of shifts into nonprofits and other entities. I have a personal connection to two groups on this screen, the first being Barb Food Mart, that's that school-based pantry, and the second being DeKalb Migrant Aid. DeKalb Migrant Aid was formed after a southern border governors were sending migrants to northern cities on buses. The city of DeKalb passed an ordinance restricting those buses from coming here. And in response to that, a bunch of volunteers like myself formed DeKalb Migrant Aid to, first of all, create a plan in case a bus did arrive in DeKalb, and then also to serve the folks that we know are here who didn't come on a bus and who might benefit from some sort of service that we could offer. So if you look at this, it's geographically diverse. These places are spread throughout our county, and there are even some more places that aren't on here who are interested in working together in the future. There was one more note I wanted to say, but I don't remember it. I think we're good. Oh, yes. So many of the organizations who are on this page have their own form of food programming, whether it's a community garden that they run or work with, a pantry that they operate. So food and the idea of food security and helping alleviate some of the stress of food insecurity, it really runs through many of these, probably all of these organizations. There's folks on here who are involved in land stewardship. There are folks who are involved in racial equity. So it's a really broad collaborative that we brought together. Once we got that, thank you. Once we got the collaborative buy-in from everyone, we submitted the grant, and here we are. This collaborative, because it's kind of big and unwieldy, you can imagine that finding a time for all of us to meet is challenging. So the collaborative members, we convene for large decision-making. For example, when we were figuring out what the story sharing portion, which I'll talk a little bit more about, when we were figuring that out, we met with a lot of different facilitators. We brought facilitators to DeKalb to sort of do a dry run, if you will, with our collaborative members. But the smaller details, the event planning, is handled by a core group of us. So myself, Ashley Mann Lofthouse with Core Collective, Dr. Laura Heidemann, who's a professor of sociology here at NIU. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people. There are many of us, but we have a kind of tight core group that changes with each project, but we work alongside the host organization. Everyone who was on that previous screen, every organization, and I should mention there are individuals as well whose names I didn't put on that screen. We all contribute to this project in a kind of unique way. We have each of us something to offer. And so it's some combination of resources, whether that be a space to host an event, a network to reach out to invite, additional funding or time to volunteer. We all have something we quote unquote bring to the table. And then in addition to that, we all have our own individual expertise, which includes our studied expertise for some of us and our lived expertise for others, and finding that there's really so much value in listening to the lived expertise of folks as you develop projects like this, alongside those more folks who have worked in the space, folks who have studied this. And we kind of are able to leverage that diversity of our expertise to offer something that's culturally responsive. One example of that is that host organizations can help us reach existing constituencies, right? They have a group. If we have an event at a church, that church has a congregation, they have an audience that they can, reach out to. And also, by working with host organizations to plan the meal, we can provide something more culturally responsive or relevant, something that feels good to the folks who are going to be eating it, and something that, we're happy to provide. And another thing we do is that we mention, and luckily we're able to do this because of the funding that we got from CRFSF, that we ask individuals about dietary restrictions due to preference, allergy, or religion on the RSVP form to make sure that we can offer an alternative. And to kind of go a little bit deeper on that, even before we get to that, my colleague, Ashley Mann Lofthouse, once we have a date set, she does some research. She finds out what are the holidays, the culturally significant days, how do they align with the day we're hosting this, so that we're prepared that if someone says, yes, actually, I observe Ramadan, and so my break fast would be at this time, and we're kind of prepared. Okay, Ramadan, break fast. We understand sort of what we can do to supplement that before someone even asks. And then if they do ask or tell us their need, we are sort of ready to accommodate or to respond to it. We can move on to the next slide, please. Excellent. So part of the common table model is hour one is this shared meal. You come in and you get placed at a table. If you come in a group, you can choose whether to split up or to stay with your group, but you're being seated next to people who you probably didn't arrive with. And so you're kind of having a meal with some strangers, maybe people you've never met, people you've seen around town. Once we've shared our meal, Dr. Ada Cheng, who's in that photo there in the red pants, she is a story sharing facilitator, and she leads us through a story share. So, for a lot of us, telling a story to someone we just met can feel really vulnerable. And so to help foster a space where we can feel confident being ourselves, we share these community aspirations that include embracing difference, respecting confidentiality, sharing authentically, and practicing curiosity. And with those 4 things in mind, we move through dinner into the story share portion of the evening. I come from, like I said earlier, a theater background. And so to me, story sharing, it's a natural fit. And it's been something I've seen many times as a really powerful tool for making connection, building an ensemble, or some sort of coalition of folks who have some kind of mutual respect. And so it's a really fun moment to have that part of myself kind of come together with some of the other community and food security work I've done. And we can move on to the next slide. Here are some photos. I mentioned earlier sort of doing the research and understanding any cultural relevance or importance on a date. Our first event was hosted on March 7th, so we just had it, which is really thrilling. It was at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, which is one of our collaborative members. And these are photos of members of our team, folks who came out from the community. And one of the things that I said when I spoke toward the beginning of the event was there are 2 reasons why it was really important that New Hope was the host of our first Common Table event meal. And the first was that we were there on March 7th, which for many folks who were in the room would recognize that it was an important anniversary in our country's history. So specifically, March 7th is the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, the Civil Rights March on Selma, Alabama. And we were here having our inaugural Common Table DeKalb meal at DeKalb's oldest, and I think only Black church. So being able to say to folks, thank you for welcoming us here. And there's something kind of auspicious and an unexpected, when the date was first put out there, it was kind of unexpected. But once we understood what that day is, it became all the more important. And I said, the second reason why we're so grateful to be here is that I've taken to writing the title of each event as Common Table DeKalb, event number, and then the name of the location. And I looked at everyone in the room and I said, I don't know about any of you, but I am feeling like my hope reserves are dwindling. And it's really nice to be here. The ethos of Common Table DeKalb is that everyone matters in a community. And I think it's something that can generate some hope. So that's Common Table DeKalb, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. Thank you, Heather. I just want to chime in and say, coming back to the fund, and the focus of funding innovation and new ideas. And it's not about how long you've been in business, but the value of food, and that food can be such a connector. So great storytelling, Frankie, about how food can bring people together, and break down barriers, you know. I consider myself a foodie, so I know the value of that. So,
Yeah.
and you know, and again, for Heather, it's like it's all about collaboration, right? Bringing people together, because no matter what they do on the top, government wise, right? There's so much we can do by just collaborating and just being in the same space. So I'm really happy to be part of this fund and to be able to be part of funding projects that are unique and new and innovative. And it's not just about the guy who's been around forever. And just trusting that the community has its solutions, right? Great idea. So now we are gonna have some questions from the audience. And we're gonna look at the chat. Brandon, do we have any questions? I was trying to.
We don't have any questions yet in the chat, but maybe to start us off, I know that we asked the audience at the top, sort of how have things changed for you? What have you leaned into since the election? How have you pivoted? And I'm just curious, maybe that's an entree into the conversation. So turning it back to the panelists, to Frankie, to Heather, and to you, Janelle, I'm, curious about how have, you touched on it a little bit, but let's get more deep into it. So since the election, how have you changed? How have you pivoted? What have you leaned into? Where have been some of those, trusted relationships? And maybe we can start with Frankie, and then we'll go reverse order. So Frankie, and then Heather, and then Janelle.
Sure. We applied for the grant last summer, and we had big plans to launch last fall, and our inaugural event happened in March. A big challenge for us was making sure that we felt confident we could launch this series in a way that people would feel safe and comfortable coming out. Part of the grant we received was about trying to alleviate any sort of friction between existing residents in DeKalb and anyone who is a new arrival, whether that is a migrant, an asylum seeker, a refugee. And so you can imagine that that's charged, and it becomes supercharged after the election. And so how do you make sure that if you're offering something to a community, you want to make sure that it's something they are interested in? That's kind of step one. And once you know that, it's sort of incumbent upon you to offer something that is secure if you're inviting them out. And so there was quite a bit of brainstorming and looking at our language and making sure that we were getting our message across in a way that was direct and that wasn't in any way sort of coded or could have been seen as, I don't know, could have rung bells in the minds of other folks. So really trying to make sure we maintain the work in a secure and sustainable way. It meant a lot of conversations. Like I said, that big collaborative is kind of like herding many, many cats. And so you shift one thing and someone else now has thoughts about it. So as a kind of democratic project, it meant listening to everyone's thoughts and really figuring out what the puzzle looked like in these new circumstances.
Thank you.
Hi. And for CFSC, I mentioned it a little bit in my very short introduction, but we have seen an increase in engagement since the election. It's understandable that so many people are just looking for something. And so we've had a record number of folks completing the volunteer form. But at the same time, the work of keeping the coalition going and the work of all of our individual member groups hasn't really changed. And a lot of our partners are definitely feeling the screws a little bit more, are feeling the pressure from this administration more than we are currently, because we operate a little bit in the shadow of this larger scale food system and capitalism as a whole. So we will be definitely feeling the impact of it, but it's going to take a little bit longer to get down to us. We've just now started to see a slowing of the offers for donation and rescue. And I'm sure that that's going to get much worse throughout this calendar year. Another thing that's definitely changed is, I know Frankie mentioned a little bit about safety. For our groups that have a physical space, we've definitely pivoted a lot to individual safety with the threat of ICE, and just things that we've taken for granted in Chicago, that people can come to a free store without worrying about what's going to happen to them while they're outside of our building. And I know every group has a different experience. I see some folks from the coalition are on here, so if you have anything you'd like to add, please do. But for one of our free stores we operate up in Hermosa, we've hatched a safety plan. There's an ICE lookout person outside of our building. We have a plan in place for if and when something were to happen in our physical space. And we've also received a lot more requests for direct food donations because so many people are afraid to leave their homes to go to traditional food pantries. I know that Pilsen Food Pantry was really vocal about that on social media when all of the ICE raids were being initially threatened. And I assume that that's going to become even more of a problem. And we're just doing what we can to address it as individual groups and as a larger coalition.
Thanks, Heather. I'm going to put on my fund hat. We hear you and we see. And the fund was, again, I mentioned earlier, was born out of a crisis. And one of the first money that went out was like emergency money, like just get it out there. And so, though I don't want to go, please keep looking at the website. So that's who we are. So we're always going to respond and be creative, but also make sure that we're not putting barriers in front of people. So the fund hears and sees, and I do expect us to react to that. I know Vanessa may want to say something else to that, but keep a look on the website because we hear you and we see you. And that's the beauty about a fund that's managed by community partners. And more than funders is that we could be more reactive. And so please keep looking at the website. Very soon you'll see, because we see it. And what's great about the fund is we don't want to be bothered with the itty-gritty of who, where, when, where. Just you being able to use the funds that best meets your organization needs, you can continue to do the work that you do. And so we're always going to be paying attention to that. As it relates to Growing Home, you know, Inglewood, we're so used to being hit. I mean, we haven't seen for Growing Home, haven't seen the hit as big, but it's sad when you have a community who's so used to trauma and being hit, right? Like, just speaking for me and my experience in being in Inglewood, that we're in the wait and see thing. But one thing we do know, all of our partners, Grow Greater Inglewood, Teamwork Inglewood, we've been talking about this since COVID. We've really worked on our collaboration. We have this thing called the We Grow Collaborative. So we've been working and preparing for moments like this for the last 2 years. And so we expect funding to be affected, but that's when we're going to ramp up our partnerships and our collaborations. Anything in the chat?
We do. We have a question for Frankie. Could you share more about what goes into sourcing and preparing food for Common Table DeKalb events?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that comes to mind when you ask about how things have changed with this new reality, and sort of finding parallels between that and COVID is that there's a good deal of grace that we need to extend to ourselves in our work. So the first event we had for Common Table DeKalb, we sort of, one of the pieces of the puzzle is to locally source food and to have local chefs, culinary arts students. For this first round, the date was on the calendar and we were running somewhat behind on bringing all the puzzle pieces together. But our host organization had a caterer that they'd worked with before, that our sort of target audience, you know, the members of New Hope had enjoyed at past events. And so we went with that caterer who is from outside the county of DeKalb, right? That's not fully meeting our sort of mission and goal. So I think recognizing like one place where the food was utterly delicious, the people enjoying it were thrilled, right? We had people asking afterward, do they have a restaurant? They actually don't, they just do catering. But so moving forward, what we're really excited to do is have more meetings with our colleagues at Rooted for Good, which are part of our collaborative, so that we can, especially as the weather gets nicer, source locally grown produce that gets incorporated into this. It's not easy. For my time back at Barb Food Mart, we bought a lot of our products from Northern Illinois Food Bank. That was where we sourced things. And over the years, we've seen that the food banks, you know, what they're able to procure and offer has changed and kind of contracted a little bit. So turning more locally, DeKalb is a highly agricultural county. So we're really excited to keep working with the folks who are growing food here and doing all the things I mentioned earlier, you know, food that will make folks feel comfortable, respected, responded to, and, you know, above all, just something that's delicious to eat.
I'm curious if anyone has a question, if you'd like to turn your mic on or comment. You don't have to turn your camera on. You can just turn take yourself off mute if you want to speak a question into the room.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for holding this event. I had a really good Inglewood idea. Janelle mentioned Inglewood. So I really love the conservatory, the one in Garfield Park. I grew up there and it's my favorite place in the world. And so my idea is to combine the conservatory with also an urban farm, so that we're covering a lot of bases at the same time. We're educating people year round, but also growing food year round and providing sustainability, providing employment, feeding people for free, things like that. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that idea.
Well, definitely reach out to me. We're in Inglewood now, and it's a capacity thing, right? We all want to grow. The good news is we're not the only one growing in Chicago, believe it or not. This Windy City Harvest, Grow Greater Inglewood, Urban Growers Collective, which I'm not going to say they're big plans, but the good news is there's more food in Chicago so being grown locally than many of you may think. So I really encourage you to look it up. But I'm always looking to Growing Home. We are one of the experts. But, you know, we're always looking for new partnerships and new ways to get people engaged with food. So definitely, if you have a connection there and you think it's worth, you can arrange a conversation. I'm open to it.
Okay, awesome. I would definitely reach out to you. You know, my whole thing is like when winter hits, you know, it's kind of hard to connect with people at that time because it's cold outside. But having something like this in the neighborhood will kind of make it like a community center, an all year round community center. You can come get out the cold. You can still learn. You can still participate in urban gardening. The kids can still come out and you know, learn something. Then they can also cook. We can have it all set up where it's a kitchen there as well. cooking demonstrations. So the whole inclusive thing. And yeah, that was my whole thought behind it. So I would definitely reach out to them.
And I put my email in the chat, but as Frankie puts it, there's nothing more beautiful than conversating around food. So we love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, this is Dale Kane with Advocates for Community Wellness. And I just want to share, actually, this is the space I needed to be, and it happened to be at the end, but this is what I need. And I got some ideas. I love the idea about the common table, bringing people together. I've worked with chefs in our program over 20 years, and I remember one of my earliest recruitment of a chef to help us in our nutrition education and cooking program. He says that food connects us all. It's an equalizer, and what more is to bring people together to share a meal and break bread. So thank you, and I can do it with a purpose behind it, with collaboration. And Janelle, I just really am inspired. I knew about Growing Homes, but I didn't know to the extent that it has grown. And I live on the south side of Chicago, and I always say that there's jewels in our areas, but we just don't know about them. Many of us don't have a big budget to advertise it, only through print and posting. But if you're not on that social media platform, which I am not like that, we don't get to know. So I would also like to connect and just see how I can get that collaborative going, bringing smaller organizations together to share our resources.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
I'm putting my email again in the chat, so please definitely connect.
If I can make one last comment, because I had smiled, I put down there, about resilience and it being in our DNA, but it's related. I remember we live in the Midwest, and I learned long time ago, people who live in the Midwest, we have more resilience, period, because we experience all 4 seasons. And I recall when we were driving south, we were just in Atlanta, and they just got a little snow. The whole town just shut down, like, restaurants and multi-accident. And I said, it's just a little snow, because we're just used to trucking through it. But when you made the comment, because of our experiences that we have in our communities, we build up, that resilience and overcoming struggles and challenges to, push us forward and achieve the things that we want to achieve. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dale. And thank you for folks who are talking about how this session has heartened you in the chat. I know that Heather brought up a few times sort of the uptick in people sort of showing up, and that people are showing up. And we're coming to the end of the conversation, unfortunately. But just curious from Heather, from Janelle, from Frankie, and in the chat from folks who are part of the conversation, just curious with folks wanting to show up and with so much sort of fear and chaos sort of happening, similar to other times of disruption, similar in some ways to COVID. What are you saying to folks who are showing up? What are you saying to folks who want to find something to do, something to contribute? Sort of how are you engaging with folks? And maybe we'll start with Heather, and then Frankie, and then Janelle can close us out.
Thanks, Brandon. I can speak from my personal experience within my smaller subset group within the coalition. We have been seeing a lot more just general engagement. And it's interesting because our coalition also formed because of an emergency. These mutual aid groups formed at the start of COVID. And here we are all these years later, continuing to move, and we're in a new but seemingly very familiar situation. And back in the early days of some of our groups, we used to have a lot more community type events and goings-ons for our volunteers to get folks, you know, acclimated to each other. I don't want to call it team building, but we had a band that we formed and community dinner nights and book club. And I'm definitely seeing a return to some of that happening within our groups. We want to give folks the opportunity to learn about how mutual aid works and how to get fully engaged within their community, because a lot of these other groups might be looking for volunteers, and it's kind of like a shift mindset where you come in, you volunteer, you go home. But getting involved with these localized mutual aid groups, it's more of a lifestyle and a social endeavor. And so we're trying to make people more sticky, or to keep them around and to keep them engaged and to have them see the value in the work that we're doing.
Thanks, Heather. Frankie.
Yeah, I think that sort of folks saying, what do I do now question, it reminds me as an educator of when students reached out to me during the pandemic saying, does it make sense to be in theater school on my computer right now? Should I take a year off? You know, what do I do now? And something that I would say is no artist has ever been made worse by meaningful life experience. And so if doing school online is going to be really meaningful and get you going, do that. If it's not, what will do that? What will feed you? And there's a quote that I came across after the election by Dr. Howard Thurman, who was an advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the quote is, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go out and do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I love that so much because it's so overwhelming. There's so much out there that is just really rising out of the horizon, and it's frightening and overwhelming. And I think one of the joys of working in this sort of sphere is that for me personally, it's like a combination of a lot of stuff that I enjoy, that I'm passionate about, and it makes me feel alive. And I think I'm sort of a better conduit for this work because of that. And so that's what I would say to people is there are so many ways to do this. Your way doesn't look like everyone else's.
I know we've gone a couple minutes over, but Janelle, would you close us out?
Thank you guys for coming. Very easy. You already started it. You're not shopping places, support your local community, support your local organization. It's that easy. You matter. There's power in just you being you. So support. Thank you.
And with that, thank you all for this really insightful discussion and ending us on a good evening. I know I enjoyed the session and I hope you all did too. And thank you everyone for bearing witness with like the tech support. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. We still have another day of full sessions, so please take a look at the agenda. And then Friday, we are going to be in person at South Shore Cultural Center. So definitely, if you have time, if you can, come visit. We'll be all together in person. And it'll be lots of fun activities, but also more discussions too, as we know we have to continue a lot of this work. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you again to our presenters, and I hope you all have a good Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.